Gaping Chasm. Hey Sam, hey everyone else, welcome back to the channel. I am here with another one of my videos that has been a long time coming again, so I apologize for that. But today, I guess this could be like a hyperfixations part 2 slash kind of diving into a subject that I'm really into. And as I mentioned in the past few videos, Pokemon is a huge part of my life. As you can see, I have my children here, little babies. And yeah, so I believe I mentioned it in the first hyperfixation video where I talked about Pokemon just kind of being a constant interest in my life, and it has influenced my like my art style or just what I'm generally interested in. And I'm so excited to talk about it today because today, along the hyperfixation lines, I'm going to be talking about every single one of my favorite Pokemon of each type. And I really had a fun time gathering all like the lists and the pictures and information for this because this is something that I've thought about obviously for a very long time. And with new Pokemon coming out every few years, I like to update it. And I was doing it the other day and I was like, well, that would make a perfect video idea because it's something that I can talk about, it's something that I like to talk about, and it's something that I know a lot about. And so in saying that, this is going to be probably a pretty long video just because there's so many of them, and I'm probably going to ramble because I like to do that, and I can do that with this subject. So without further ado, here we go. And I would like to do a little disclaimer. So like I said, there's going to be favorite Pokemon for each type. There is not going to be a section for ground type or flying type, and that's because how I sectioned it off was categorizing them by primary type. So if there's a Pokemon with two different types, I would just put them into their primary type section. And in doing this, there was no primary type flying type Pokemon that were my favorite or primary type ground type that were my favorite. So just a little disclaimer, and let's get this started. So we're going to start with the normal type. Normal type is, I think, very, very underestimated. And, well, it's normal. There's not really like a solid understanding of what the normal type is, other than just like general abilities, powers, and strengths. Like I guess healing could be part of that, or like physical strength, but that could also be fighting type. So it's a little bit more vague, but these Pokemon are super versatile and they're very common, so you can have them in your team from the beginning of the game or catch them later in the game as well and still have them be a powerhouse to your team. So I'm going to start off with one that a lot of people don't like, and I completely understand why, but this one is Miltank, and I believe a lot of people don't like it because of in Gold and Silver, and obviously Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Crystal, there was the gym leader, Whitney, who was a normal type gym leader, and I believe she had a Clefairy or Clefable first, and then her last Pokemon was a Miltank. I might be getting those Pokemon wrong, it might be Snubbull, but I'm not sure. But regardless, her final Pokemon in the games was a Miltank. And it had the infamous move Rollout that absolutely demolished most people's teams. Obviously, you beat her at some point because you figured out a strategy, but I think, at least with me, every time I started that game and the first run through of her gym, always lost because of the Rollout move. And Rollout is a rock type move that every time you use it repeatedly in succession, it gets more and more powerful, especially since Miltank can learn Defense Curl, which enhances its defense. It was even more hard to defeat it. But in saying that, aside from that context, Miltank I think is just a really cute Pokemon. My favorite color is pink, obviously, so I have a tendency to gravitate towards pink Pokemon just on a base level. But also, I have a really, really high connection to cows because I have a cow. That is a very general statement. Let me explain. So my family is from a village. I am not from the village, but my family and ancestors are from a village in Mexico, and our family is still there. Some of them are still there and living there and have lived there all their lives. And we have our farm, or a ranch, which we like to call it the ranch. And I have a cow. So ever since I was a kid, I have loved cows. They've been one of my favorite animals, just like in general. I think they're really cool and really calm and gentle. So that's kind of the basis of that Pokemon choice. Miltank is, I just think is also really cute. I love that they have the udders because everyone thinks they're disgusting. I think they are off-putting, but I love that they have it. I think it's such a good touch, and it kind of makes this Pokemon like a little bit more funny to enjoy because of it. And I love telling people that I like it because they're like, well, that's a mostly hated Pokemon because it's so strong and so irritating. I like it because it's cute, point blank. The next one is also pink and is also really cute, and this one is Blissey. I have been really, really into for most of my life in like games, comic books, shows, whatever. As like I've been interested in the healing character, like any healers, and that's mostly my fighting style for any characters or games or anything. Um, Besides like I guess in this case would be special attack, but like long distance attacks with magic or non physical whatever. But yeah, so this Pokemon is as known as the healing type or the healing Pokemon essentially, and Chansey, its pre-evolution is always with Nurse Joy for the most part. It's changed in the newer shows and anime. I believe they switched it to Audino for Black and White, and then I think Comfey in Sun and Moon for the anime. I can't really remember quite perfectly, but yeah, Blissey is awesome. I also love just the egg motif. I think that's really cute and cool. This is gonna sound so weird. I love eggs as food, as ideas, as just things. They're round and spherical. I love spherical things, as is Blissey. So I think that's also why I was drawn to Blissey as one of my favorite Pokemon. I don't use Blissey in a lot of playthroughs because, as I'm sure a lot of fans know, Blissey and its evolution line has horrible attack stats. I think also horrible special attacks, just off overall offensive attack stats. But its HP is, I believe, one of the highest, if not the highest, of all Pokemon, and so it's more of a debuffer or like just support, which I enjoy. But I usually when I do a run through, I go for like kind of the hard hitters in the special attack area. But yeah, Blissey is pink, frilly around, and I love her. She's great. I want to cuddle her. And I'm looking for a Blissey plush right now because, as you can see, I have Togepi and Togekiss, which will come later in the video. And I kind of want to do a collection of all my favorite Pokemon as plushies, if they have them. And I'm also looking down because that's where like, the list is, so sorry about that. But yeah, and then the third one in the normal type category is my favorite. As my favorite Pokemon in the normal type category is another pink Pokemon, Licky, the evolution of Lickitung. This one also I think gets a lot of trash talk because it's kind of just like one of those outliers. Like Lickitung in Gen 1 was kind of a popular-ish one because it was Jesse's Pokemon in the anime, and I mean it was also pink and round and cute, I think. And then Licky was announced in Gen 4 for Diamond and Pearl, and I don't think it got that much attention. I think it's really cool looking. I've never used one in a playthrough of any game, but I just like how it looks. It's so cool. It has like a little, like it kind of looks like not a suit, but like a ruffle in the front when you wear a tuxedo or something, and I think it's just really cute. It's large and it's pink, and I'm here for it. Yeah, again, I've never used one in game, so I'm not too sure what the playthrough is like with a Licky, but come on, like, it's so cute. It has a little swirl on its head. It's essentially a ball with arms and a tail. Yeah, there's no other explanation than it's just really cute. Like, that's gonna be a lot of the explanations for these Pokemon. But also, I think its moveset is really cool because it has pretty good stats from what I've read, I think. It can learn a lot of physical attacks and some special attacks, I believe. And as with all normal types, they have the ability to learn a lot of elemental types, fire, water, whatever, because they're kind of the baseline type. So I'm going to probably stick with that one. It's not, Licky isn't one of my top 10 or top 15 probably, but it's definitely one of those Pokemon that I've always liked or appreciated. And the next one is also a Pokemon that was announced in Gen 4 from a previous evolution. It's Porygon Z. And Porygon as it's not a very good Pokemon to use in battle or in game, I would say, but it's definitely a niche Pokemon, and it's kind of a gimmicky, like one of those characters. It's a gimmick where it's like it was hard to find or hard to obtain in the game. Where you can only, I think in the very first Pokemon game in Red and Blue, in America, Red and Green in Japan, you can only get it at the is it the Game Center in Celadon City? I want to say, I might be wrong, but you could. That's the only way you could obtain it, I believe. I don't think you could catch it in the wild. And then in later games, even more recent games, Porygon has become a pretty popular Pokemon to get as a gift, and I think that's really cool. Just that specific way of getting it, but also Porygon and its evolution lines, including Porygon Z, are one of the few man-made Pokemon, and I think that's just really cool. I like what it's based off of, and I'm not going to talk about it because I don't understand it completely, like the theory, but it's based on like computer graphics and how Porygon, the first evolution, Porygon starts off as like edgy and very like pointed, and then it evolves into Porygon 2, where it's a little bit more smooth, and that's like the advancement in animation and computer graphics. And then Porygon Z is the distorted slash like infected computer program with a virus, and that whole concept is just really cool. And I don't know, it just looks freaky and weird and cute. Its head is not connected to its body, and I don't know, it kind of looks like a duck, but not really. It's just a really cool Pokemon, I think. I believe I've used it, I want to say Platinum or Heart Gold when I did a playthrough, and it was okay. It definitely wasn't a hard hitter. I think I used it just for its Zap Cannon because I didn't have a electric type Pokemon on my team or something like that, where I only used it for one thing or another. But yeah, and then the next Pokemon, also introduced in Gen 4, it was a novel Pokemon in Diamond and Pearl, is Purugly. This is another one of those Pokemon that gets a lot of flack for just being like really disappointing and ugly. A lot of people compare it to a Alolan Persian because you get they announced the first evolution. So in this case, Glameow can be compared to Alolan Meowth, and Glameow is Purugly's pre-evolution, for those of you who don't know. And it's really cute. It's very like sleek looking and it's cool. And then it evolves into something that no one was expecting, and it's a lot of disappointment for a few people, like a Alolan Persian, because it's literally like Persian's body and then a globe as a head. This one, I think it's really cute because it's so fat and it's like angry. It kind of looks like an angry grandma, and it's very for that vibe. I'm here for that vibe. But I also like how it kind of looks like a white tiger, but like a house cat version. And white tigers are honestly one of my favorite Pokemon, besides the fact of like inbreeding and like all the genetic diseases that they can have. And you know, that aside, like it as a Pokemon, or as an animal I should say, the white tiger is just really cool. I like the symbolism. It's used a lot in Power Rangers, which is also one of my other favorite franchises, and that'll be a whole other video. But the fact that it's like a house cat version of a white tiger is just really cute, and it's round, rotund, an actual whole unit, and that's why I love it. Also because its whiskers kind of look like antennae. I think that's really cute and cool. The picture here isn't showing it, but the tail is kind of like a fork, and like that fuzzy white part that you see on its body is a fork, and it's connected to like a coil. That's its tail. But the fork part of the tail is like cinching its waist to make it bulge out and look bigger. That's really cool. I think that as just a concept that they put into the lore and description of this Pokemon is so cool, and it's just like completely unnecessary, I think, but also just a fun addition. And yeah, I just think it's really rad. I think I've used this one in a playthrough of Diamond and Pearl, Pearl specifically, because it's not exclusive to Pearl, and I've always liked it. I like cats. I'm not like a huge fan of cats. Like, it's not my favorite Pokemon. I'm sorry, favorite animal. It's Pokemon animals are essentially the same thing in my book, but I love fat cats and I love tigers, and I think this is just a really good conglomerate of those two things. Also, if you look at the picture, it kind of has like purpley eyeshadow, and that's very much like an old lady thing, and I just think that motif on top of the cat is just so cute. I love it. And the final one in the normal type Pokemon section is Wigglytuff. Again, it's one of the round pink Pokemon that was introduced in Gen 1 next to Jigglypuff, Clefairy, Clefable, etc. And This isn't one of my like all time favorites, but in the normal categories, definitely one of my favorites. That's why it's here. And Jigglypuff is kind of one of those Pokemon that's also iconic, along with Pikachu, Clefairy. I would say Togepi as like a cute Pokemon. In the show, obviously, it's infamous for its song and putting people to sleep unknowingly and then getting upset about it. Very much me, very much relatable. But Wigglytuff, I kind of like the evolution of going from like this little cat singer Pokemon to this like more of the focus on being a balloon type Pokemon, where it's like inflates and it kind of bounces everywhere, but also has the rabbit motif more of it than the cat from Jigglypuff. Again, it also helps that it's pink, round, and cute, and I enjoy like sound slash song slash music based Pokemon, and that's kind of what this evolution line is, and I just think it's really cute and cool. And most of the Pokemon that evolve with the Moonstone specifically, this is just a little note, tend to be one of my favorites just because I don't know actually. I think that's more of a coincidence, but yeah, so this one evolves from a Jigglypuff with a Moonstone, and that's just a trend that I've seen with the Moonstone evolving Pokemon. But yeah, so Wigglytuff, that is the last normal type, and the next section from normal is going to be fire type. Fire type, there are not as many Pokemon that are my favorite. I think normal type and water and psychic are going to be the most populated in terms of favorite Pokemon, but definitely I'm a fan of fire type. They're awesome. They are usually special attack based and speed based, I think. Not too sure, that's just a guess. But the two Pokemon in this category are both fox Pokemon, which I wasn't intending to do that, but they just turned out to be that way. The first one is, I think, a very popular choice and a fan favorite. It's Ninetales, the Kanto version, and I don't know anyone who doesn't at least somewhat enjoy Ninetales or think that it's just in general cool. As a lot of you know, Ninetales is based on the Kitsune of mythology, and it just looks really cool and kind of badass, and also like a little bit spooky, which is very much its basis of lore and the descriptions you hear that Ninetales has like some psychic slash ghost kind of powers, and like its tails are cursed, or it can curse you if you touch one of its tails or something like that. And I think that's just generally awesome. It's also, besides its mystical properties, it as a fox Pokemon is just super cool looking. Like it's sleek, it's like pretty, but also like it looks dangerous. I don't know anyone who outwardly dislikes Ninetales, so I just think it's one of those cool Pokemon. Then going to Delphox, which is one of my favorite starter final evolutions. And this more so is based on the fact that, well, I like it because it's based on the fact of like witches and wizards and mages, and I think that's just really cool. And when it was introduced in X and Y, the three starters, I believe, were based off of like fighter classes in classic video games. So there was the mage, which was Delphox, there was the assassin, which was Greninja, and then like the knight slash berserker, I think, which was Chestnut. So I really like that dynamic, and then out of the three, I would definitely gravitate towards the mage class or the magic class. And I don't know, I think it's really cool. When it first was announced, starting from Fennekin and then to Braixen and then to Delphox, Braixen really had me excited because it had the wand in its tail. Braixen is the pre-evolution of Delphox, and we hadn't seen Delphox yet. So I was really, really hoping that it would be more of like a classical witch evolution, where it would like have a hat and kind of be on a broomstick, where like the wand would turn into the broomstick upon evolution. It didn't. It turned into more of like a cloak looking thing with the magic wand still being there, which I am still very much a fan of. I liked how they turned out in the end, but I was more hoping for, like I said, like the hat and the broom and everything. But again, I've used this Pokemon in all of my X and Y playthroughs, and I love it. It's always going to be a fan favorite of mine. Now, moving on to fighting this time. This type, I am not too much of a fan of. It's just not one of my favorites. I don't really like it. I rarely use a fighting type Pokemon in my team. But in Sword and Shield was the first time where I did use a fighting type Pokemon in my team, and it was one that I genuinely enjoyed design-wise and battle-wise, and it was Sirfetch'd, which is the Galarian evolution of Farfetch'd. Farfetch'd has never really caught my attention. I'm sure it hasn't caught a lot of people's attention because it's a pretty basic Pokemon, or it's just not really strong or popular. And not to like bag on it, but that's just kind of what my thought process was. But in Sword and Shield, when it evolved into a Surfetch'd, the fact that it actually had a Sword and Shield made from the leek that it was holding is genius, I think. I love how they just designed it, and like the shield is are like the leaf part and the sword is the stock. That's genius. I love it. That was more of my gravitation towards it, not necessarily like the actual design of the Pokemon, like the duck itself. Like it looks fine. It has a unibrow, whatever, who doesn't? But the sword and shield aspect was what drew me to this. And this is kind of the only fighting type Pokemon that I really, really like. Like, I don't hate fighting types, but it's just not my favorite, in all honesty. So moving from fighting type, we have water type. And there's 5 Pokemon in this section. I think that's a pretty good number. And this is one of the only... I think there's another one or 3 other than this that there's a Pokemon that's my favorite that isn't completely evolved. And that's very rare for me because I usually just like end up liking the final evolution. But yeah, so there's a couple Pokemon in this entire video that I just like as is, unevolved, just because I think they're cute, or I think they're better looking than their evolutions. So I'm going to start off with Milotic, another one of those Pokemon that almost everyone likes. Milotic is gorgeous, it's really cool, it's serpentine, but also like very gentle and not like completely snake-like. It's more of like I don't know. I mean, it's the beauty Pokemon. It's very cool. And when it came out in Ruby and Sapphire, is obviously one of the hardest Pokemon to obtain and evolve at the same time. So Feebas, it's pre-evolution, super hard to find. We know the odds. It was like in the section of water that it could be found in. It was like there was 4 tiles out of the how many other like 100 or 200 or something that Feebas could be fished for. And every time you like fished for one and then you went into a battle and then you exited, I don't know if it reset then or it reset like day by day. The point is that it was really rare. And then it was kind of like this ugly fish evolving into this beautiful serpent. And that was kind of the tie-in to the contests that were introduced in Ruby and Sapphire. And so you had to raise Feebas's beauty stat, and then it evolved, and then, so on. I really like that idea. I think it just looks really cool. Its tail looks like a fan, and it looks like it has red hair. It's overall gorgeous. Like, I don't know anyone who would disagree. But if you do, whatever, your opinion. But yeah, Milotic, one of my favorite Pokemon easily. The next one is the section of Pokemon where I was talking about where I prefer it unevolved, and it's Clamperl, which was also introduced in Generation 3, which is Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald. Clamperl is so cute, and not that I don't like its evolutions, Gorobus and Huntail, I think they're pretty cool. I just really like clams and oysters. I think they're super interesting Pokemon, and I just like the ideas of pearls as a gemstone, pearls coming from oysters. I think it's really cute, and oysters are one of my favorite animals in general, and people are so like surprised that I would say that is one of my favorite animals. But I don't know, the little pink head, it looks like it's sleeping, it's so cute, and then it has like the bed inside the clam, and it's so cool. Obviously haven't used this one too much in game because as a unevolved Pokemon, it's not that strong. I think it only learns like 4 moves, 4 or 5, and those moves are like Withdraw, Bubble maybe, or Water Gun, Iron Defense, and something else. It naturally doesn't learn many moves. I think it can learn a few TMs and HMs, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this is more of one of those Pokemon that I like just as a design or conceptual. And the next one is my little baby, my son, Slowpoke. This is actually more of a recent development, and my love for Slowpoke. Yeah, I would say I started appreciating it like a year ago, but like before that, I didn't really pay much attention to it. It was like, oh, it's the dopey looking Pokemon that doesn't do much. I did use it in a Heart Gold run through before like I started really liking Slowpoke, just because I caught it and I was like, oh, I want a Slowpoke to evolve into a Slowking. But Slowpoke, I don't know why my opinions changed, or I just started gaining this affinity for it. it's large, pink, and pudgy, and I kind of just want to like hold it like a baby and just like pet it and make sure that it's okay and safe and make sure that it's completely happy, and it's just so cute. I'm rambling on that, but on the lore side of it, there's a lot of theory videos that I watch in general by YouTubers such as MNJ TV, um, True Green 7, and Birdkeeper Toby, some of my favorite PokeTubers. But there was a few theory videos, I believe, starting with Birdkeeper Toby. I think that was the first one I watched. Yeah, I think. And it was talking about like why Slowpoke is the way it is, and then it was more like, oh yeah, it's kind of like it's tuned into like the entire universe, and it like knows so much knowledge that it's kind of an overload, and it just like flatlines. That's why it's the dopey Pokemon, and that theory is just so cool to me. And then I started watching other videos by my favorite PokeTuber right now, which is Loxted and Noggin. I have binge watched most of his videos, and he's just super cool. I highly recommend him. But this Pokemon is like, the fact that I started off liking it because it's just pudgy and cute, and then it has this really cool theory to it where it's like so smart that it's dumb, and then it evolves into one of its evolutions, Slowking, which is one of the most intelligent Pokemon known in the universe right now, because it can communicate with humans, like it can talk, or at least like or at least I think it has telepathy, or I don't know if it can actually like speak coherently to humans, but I know in the second Pokemon movie, I think, where with Lugia and the three birds, it could definitely speak English in the movie that I saw. The mode of which I do not know. I don't know if it's telepathic or verbal, whatever. But that just whole concept and whole family is really cool to me. With Slowpoke, the unevolved Pokemon, being my favorite of the bunch. And then the next one is another Pokemon that was introduced in Kanto, or Gen 1, is Starmie. Starmie is very cool. A lot of people like this one too. I like that it's a starfish from space, but also like kind of an alien. Also kind of with magic powers, has a gem in the middle. Anything with a gem I'm gonna like. I'm a simple person who likes shiny things. Sue me. But the fact that it's also like this super weird like psychic based Pokemon with no face, essentially, that in that anime makes like martial arts sounds like Haya as its communication, was so weird to me. But I love this Pokemon so much. I love starfish in general. I love marine animals, obviously. But I just think this is really cool. I love water psychic types, as per my mentioning of Slowpoke and Starmie. But I don't think I've ever used this in a playthrough in a video game, but it's always been one of those Pokemon that I definitely aesthetically appreciate. I don't know. It's just really cool. It was one of those Pokemon that I was always like, oh, the cool Pokemon. Like, that's the one, like, oh, if you like it in elementary school, you were the cool kid or something like that. Yeah, but I think I want to try using a Starmie in a playthrough of a video game. I think you could catch one in the Isle of Armor and the downloadable content for Sword and Shield, but I kind of want to start like a new game and start off with the Staryu and then play through it while keeping Staryu and then evolving it into Starmie in my party. But we'll see how that goes. The final one for the water section is one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, and it's like top 5 easily, if not top 3, and it's Primarina, which is also my favorite starter final evolution that I've used in every single run-through of Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon. So this Pokemon is obviously based off of like mermaids, but it's more so towards like the siren vibe because of its song and like its hypnotic kind of usage of the songs and everything. And Sam, you know this to such a high extent. 1, sirens are my favorite mythological creature, and 2, I'm very passionate about the difference between mermaids and sirens because I think they're kind of like clumped together now. So I tend to separate them, but I know a lot of like popular media kind of mushes them together. But so this one physically is very much like a mermaid, but its abilities are siren based, and I was like so happy when I heard that this Pokemon was, or when I heard that it was announced and that it was the starter final evolution, and it just looks so pretty, and it has the hair, the tail. I'm a fan of mermaids, but definitely more so sirens, and it could have just been a mermaid Pokemon, just like straight up, that's it. But the fact that its signature moves and signature hidden ability are sound based, and it's like singing, and using that as its attack was so cool to me. So the fact that it was a starter, I was able to use it early in game. The fact that it was based on sirens and that it's a water and fairy type, which you will find out later, fairy type is my favorite type of all time. It felt like a perfect fit, and it will always be one of my favorite Pokemon. Definitely the top 3, I would say. The next section is grass type Pokemon. I was surprised at how many Pokemon were in this section, because not that I don't like grass type Pokemon, but it's not like one of my favorite types per se. But we're going to start with Chikorita, and this is also another one of those Pokemon that I prefer unevolved. Not that I don't like Bayleaf or Meganium, but I used it in Gold and Silver and Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and again, just really cute. It's so cute. It has a little leaf ponytail, and it's pudgy but not really, and it has these stumpy legs, and overall just really cute. And yeah, that I have nothing else to say about that. And then the next one is Cherum, which is based on the cherry blossoms. I love cherry blossoms. I think they're a really cute motif, gorgeous when they bloom. I hope to see them in person someday. But I also like that it has the 2 forms, the overcast form and then the sunny form. And this is the sunny form, which I prefer, obviously. It's just so cute. It has little pink stubs for arms, and it's a cherry blossom with a face. I don't know what to tell you. It's so cute. I think I tried to use this in a playthrough of Platinum or something, but it is not too strong. It's more another one of those gimmicky Pokemon, which I definitely am all for. I love gimmicky Pokemon, just not really great in battle. The next one is not a gimmicky Pokemon. It's actually super, super good in battle, and it's Serena from Sun and Moon. Now, Serena is just a badass. She looks like she's wearing high-heeled boots and that she's coming for your man. She'll snatch all your wigs and then have a drink right after. She's just so fierce, and she has a little crown on her head, and her bangs are swept back. She's just very femme fatale, and I'm so here for it. I believe her highest stat is her physical attack stat, which I was surprised by because she looks more of a special attacker. But because of those legs, her signature move, I believe, is Trop Kick, as in tropical, Trop Kick. And it's so powerful. I remember using a Serena in my Moon run-through, I believe. And it was definitely one of my heavy hitters, and I was such a big fan. The next one is Vileplume, which was introduced in Gen 1. Vileplume, along with Gloom and Oddish, are just, I think, really cute Pokemon. And very underappreciated, I would say. Oddish was super cute in the anime. I remember as a kid, it just sounded cute, like a little baby. And then it evolved into Gloom, which looks like a gloomy teenager. I like that aspect. And then Vileplume is the adult with a big ass hat and just kind of a spooky vibe to it, with its brim just over one of its eyes. Really cool. The flower that it's based off of, I believe it's, I don't want to say it wrong. I think it's the Rafflesia or something. I should have looked this up, and I could have, but I didn't. But I believe it's known as the death flower. It's not the corpse flower, because that's something different, but it smells like rotting meat. And not that that's my favorite thing in the world, but I just think that that's cool. And it's overall just a really pretty Pokemon. And it has that Gen 1 simplicity into the design, but that's also not missing anything. Do you know what I mean? It's very simple, but it's just enough to where it's really cool. And then the next Pokemon is Roserade. Roserade is definitely also one of my top 10 Pokemon, I would say. I love roses. I have a special connection to roses because of my grandmother. She grows roses, and I've always associated that with her. And the city that I live in is known as the City of Roses, and that's kind of our motif. And it's just kind of been all around me all my life, and I've never really appreciated roses as a plant and as a symbol until college, probably, or at least into adulthood. And so that association with roses personally, along with just the Roserade looking really cool. I love that they have the white rose as the hair, and then the red and blue bouquets. Also red and blue as counterpart colors in a design I will always love, in Harley Quinn. That's also really cool how they're seen as opposites. So if you split in half, and one side is blue, one side is red, I'm always going to be for that. I also like that it looks just not creepy, but what's the word? Like sneaky. Like it's plotting against you, but it's not gonna do it right away. It's like gonna wait. It'll spike your drink with poison and then marry your husband after you die. Very much that. And I also just like that it's not a large rose like its pre-evolution Roselia. I like that it evolved from a single rose into a bouquet on each of its arms, which is overall really cool. I think I've used this also in a playthrough and it's been pretty good. So yeah, definitely Roserade is a top Pokemon of mine. The next one was introduced in Gen 5, and which was Black and White and Black 2 and White 2. It's Whimsicott, and again, this is one of those Pokemon that is just so cute. It's round, it's fluffy, it's kind of a ram, it's kind of a plant, and I love that most of its mass is just fluff. Interestingly, as I said, Fairy type is my favorite Pokemon type of all time. When it came out, it wasn't Fairy type, obviously, because Fairy type wasn't introduced until Gen 6, which was right after Gen 5. But even before it was made into a Grass Fairy type, when it was just a Grass type, I loved it. I had it on my team in Pokemon White, I believe. And it's so cool. And I love that it can learn Hurricane. Hurricane also came out in Gen 5, and I loved that move. I think it was so cool. And I don't know, it's pretty strong, I would say. When I used it, it was pretty good, and overall just really cute. The last Pokemon in the grass section, it was introduced in Gen 7, which is Sun and Moon, and I believe it's pronounced Shinotic or Shinotic, and it's the mushroom Pokemon, one of the few mushroom Pokemon that we have. Also a fairy type, so I'm going to gravitate towards that one more anyway. It's really cool, it's kind of spooky, it's kind of creepy, but looks like one of those fake creatures that could harm you but won't because it's like chill. Even though in the anime it legit knocked out Ash and his friends and like stole their life energy, but then it gave the life energy back at the end of the episode anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I just think it looks really cool. It's very alien-like with its arms and fingers, and then it just has like this giant hat. I read online that its evolution, I believe Moralol is how you say it, was like the nightlight, and then its evolution, this one is Shinotic, and it's a lamp. That's also really cool. I love those kind of concepts where it's not explicitly like outrightly portrayed in the design, but you can definitely see it once you hear about it, and I love that. Yeah, so that's the grass type Pokemon, and the next one is poison type. Poison type, for a while I didn't really like it, especially because it's like the antithesis to the fairy type, or not necessarily antithesis, but like a weakness of fairy type. But I started to appreciate it a lot more, especially in Gen 7, Sun and Moon, because I used the poison type Pokemon and I thought it was really cool. Also, the move Toxic, arguably one of the most popular moves of all time in Pokemon, is really useful, and I didn't find that out until more recently, which is a travesty because it's so good in competitive play. But, so yeah, we're going to start with Poison, and the first one is Nidoqueen. And this is one of those Pokemon where it would have been in the ground type section if there was one, but ground type is its secondary type, so I'm going to put it in the poison type. So Nidoqueen is the female evolution of the female Nidoran. Nidoran's family, I don't know how I feel about it. I like it as another one of those gimmick Pokemon where it's like, oh, males evolve into this separate Pokemon and females evolve into this separate Pokemon. I always liked that gameplay concept. Nidoqueen is, I think, more so one of my favorite Pokemon because I did this little project in college where I drew the Justice League as Pokemon based on personalities, attributes, superpowers, and I made Wonder Woman Nidoqueen because of like the defense kind of aspect with her cuffs and kind of like also the motherly / feminine power for Wonder Woman. So I think that's also one of my reasons for being so into this Pokemon. I typically don't use ground types usually. I've had used them in the past, but I don't know, Nidoqueen is just a really cool Pokemon. It's super powerful, and yeah, its movesets are pretty diverse too, I think, when I try to use it. Can't remember too well, but yeah, Nidoqueen, definitely a cool Pokemon. The next one is Salazzle, and this is the Pokemon that I used in Sun and Moon that introduced me to really appreciating poison type Pokemon. This is another one of those Pokemon where it's the gender gimmick where it can only evolve if it's a female. If it's a male, it doesn't evolve. Again, this is just a really cool looking Pokemon. Its special attack stat is crazy, And the combination of moves that I had in Sun and Moon, which I'm sure a lot of people used, was it was like Flamethrower, Attract, Toxic, and Venoshock. So how Venoshock and Toxic works together is that so Venoshock has like a base attack and it's a pretty good poison type move, but it doubles in power if the Pokemon is poisoned. So I would use Toxic and then use Venoshock for like a surefire way of using a poison type move, and I thought that was really cool. Also, Salazzle has these. I don't know if it's a signature ability of Salazzle, but it definitely has the ability Corrosion, which allows it to poison metal types, I believe, or it allows poison types. I'm sorry, metal or steel types to be hit by poison types, and that is just really cool to me. And then this Pokemon I have such a hard time pronouncing because I hear it differently by a lot of people. I say Naganadel or Naganadel, I've heard some people say, or Naganadel or something. It's the Ultra Beast that I think is the best looking and it's cool looking. It evolves from Poipole, which is super cute. But Naganadel is kind of like this dragon / needle injector design, and I think that's really cool. I actually recently used it in a playthrough of Ultra Moon. Not in a playthrough because I got it at the end of the game, but it's on my team. And it's pretty good, I would say. It's not like the best Ultra Beast battle-wise, but I definitely think it's the best design-wise because a lot of them were strange. I don't want to say bad because I like the Ultra Beast, but like Stakataka and Blacephalon, a little bit weird looking. I love Blacephalon because it looks like a clown, but Naganadel I think it just looks cooler than them. And then we go to Electric type. So this one also has quite a few Pokemon. So I'm going to start with Ampharos. It's one of those Pokemon that I always thought were just really cool. I like that it's based on a sheep / lighthouse, and how it like gets its fur goes away as it evolves. Like as a Mareep, it's just like a ball of fluff, and then it evolves into Flaffy, and it's kind of like half fluff, half like normal sheep body, and then now the fur is completely gone, and it's like has crystals on it. I think that's really cool. I've used it once, I believe, in a Heart Gold run through, and then it got a Mega Evolution in Gen 6, and I didn't know how I felt about it at first. Now I appreciate it because the lore behind it that I've heard at least is really cool. I think there's a myth of like a dragon sheep Pokemon. I also should have looked that up, but I think it was on one of Loxton and Noggin's YouTube videos. I think, I'm not too sure. But besides that myth and mythos part of its concept, the fact that it has a wig, like come on, that's so cool. I think it's so fun. And then we'll go to Rotom, and Rotom was introduced in Gen 4. Rotom is another one of those gimmick Pokemon that I just like because it's a gimmick. It's a Ghost Electric type. I should say Electric Ghost type because the Electric is its primary type. But it can possess different appliances and then change types and learn a different move as it possesses a certain appliance. And those appliances that are my favorite are the refrigerator / freezer and the fan. And the fan is a flying type, obviously, and the ice type is the refrigerator, or freezer, I guess, but they both are kind of the same concept. And I haven't used this in any run-throughs or battles, but it's definitely more of one of those like conceptual Pokemon that I just like. And in the last section of the electric type Pokemon is Toxtricity, which came out recently in Sword and Shield, and I used it. I loved it. I was so happy with it. It's so powerful. The concept again is based on like music, punk rock, sound. Its body is literally a guitar, in its amped stage, which is this one that I'm showing on screen. It also has I believe it's called low-key form, that's blue instead of yellow, and its body resembles a bass, I believe, instead of the guitar. I just prefer the amped version because I like the color scheme better. But this Pokemon is one of the Pokemon that has Gigantamax form, and its form is so cool. It literally has a guitar made out of electricity, and its tail looks like sorry, I'm looking at it. I don't know what to call it, but it looks like one of those towers, like the telephone towers that the electricity runs through. It's just so cool, and it has a mohawk made out of different colored electricity. What else can you ask for? It's just so cool and super powerful. Next is the Psychic type, and if I'm counting correctly, which I think I can do sometimes, this type has the most Pokemon in it in terms of my favorite types. Why, I don't know, but well, I kind of do know. Psychic type is my second favorite Pokemon type after Fairy. But we're just going to run through these. Hopefully I don't spend too much time on this, but Wobbuffet is another one of those gimmick Pokemon. It's a punching bag, and I like the theory that its tail is the actual Pokemon instead of the body, which is like the decoy. It can, yeah, it can learn 4 moves, and those are kind of that's like its signature aspect, that it can only learn those 4 moves, and none of them are like, they're not using its own strength. It's using the attacker's strength against it, whether it's a special or physical attack, with mirror code and counter. And I think that concept is really cool. Then is Cresselia, which is a legendary Pokemon, one of my favorite legendaries. It's a moon goddess. I'm here for that. The moon is a concept that I think a lot of people really enjoy, and it's just so pretty. It's pink. You know how I feel about pink stuff. And I like that the rings kind of look like planetary-ish, but also like veils. And it's so cool. It also kind of looks like a swan, which is really pretty. And this is such a good design, and I love it. The next one is Gothitelle, which was introduced in Gen 5. It's this, not a witch, I don't want to say, but like astrology, gothic Lolita kind of look, and that's awesome. She's so cool. I love her hair, her bows. Her bows is what drew me in aesthetic-wise. But I don't know, this Pokemon is, I think this is the Pokemon that's known for like being able to see when its trainer dies, and that's kind of badass, and then it weeps, and that kind of adds like to the more of the lore to it. And the fact that it's also known as like, I think it's the celestial body Pokemon or something. The fact that it's associated with space is just really cool. And then after Gothitelle, it's Tapu Lele, and Tapu Lele is my favorite of the Tapus in Sun and Moon. It's pink again. Gotta love the pink Pokemon. I just like this Pokemon because it's fairy psychic, or psychic and fairy. And in terms of the Polynesian mythology, it's based on the Hawaiian god of life, I think. I think that's really cool. The fact that it's also a butterfly when it like draws into its shell is so cute, and I think this design is just really well done. I'm such a fan of Tapu Lele. And then also introduced in Sun and Moon is Cosmog, which evolves into Cosmoem, and then either Lunala or Solgaleo. It's just a cloud. It's so cute. It's multicolored. It has little blue cheeks and little eyes and a mouth. It's so cute. This Pokemon is useless in battle, but conceptual-wise and in the anime, such a good Pokemon. It's so cute, and it's a baby, and I love him. And then also from Sun and Moon is Necrozma. Necrozma was like the third legendary Pokemon, like kind of like how Rayquaza is, and Giratina, and so on. It's very interesting in the fact that appearance-wise, it doesn't really match the other two. Kind of like how, well, Giratina doesn't really match Dialga and Palkia, really, but it's just like on a completely different level from Lunala and Solgaleo. And I like that its body is like crystalline, but also based on the absorption of light, to where it's absorbing all of it, and it's black, like it's pitch black. I think it's also somewhat loosely based on black holes. And the fact that Lunala and Solgaleo are based on like the sun and the moon, and that whole concept was awesome. I think that was such a home run with Sun and Moon. Then in Ultra Sun and Moon, it evolved, or it turned into Ultra Necrozma, and it gained a Dragon type. That's all fine and dandy. I love the Dragon type, no complaints there. My favorite part of this design is that from its original design, the body parts shifted and turned into the dragon. Like, I didn't notice when it first came out that its body and face was like the dragon head, and like its legs were the arms, and that was so cool. It's a whole puzzle, and I love it. I also like that it's based on light. Sam again knows how much I have an affinity for light-based powers and all that, and it was so cool. And the lore and story that was in Ultra Sun and Moon, fantastically done with Necrozma. So happy with it. The next one is Subat, not as awesome as Necrozma, but it was introduced in Black and White. It's just really cute. It's a bat with a heart, and it like emits heart-shaped sound waves. I'm into that. Hearts are definitely kind of like my thing, in terms of like aesthetic wise. It's cute. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's also a psychic type Pokemon, which I love. And I remember when I first saw it, I was really happy with it, and then the more I looked at it, the more I was not happy with its ears, like, or its single ear. But I also get why it's like that, because it's another sound-based Pokemon, and it kind of helps reflect the sound waves and all that. I also like how its tail looks like a heart at the end, just ever so slightly. And I think I also used this in one of my run-throughs, and it was pretty good. It wasn't one of the hard hitters that I had, but definitely a cute Pokemon in my book. And then we have Gardevoir, which is a fan favorite among a lot of people. It's super powerful, looks really graceful, and then it evolves into Mega Gardevoir, which is the reason why I like it, really. Mega Gardevoir has very much like a bridal dress kind of design, and I love that. Beside the fact that it's just an overall cool Pokemon, it's based on emotions and kind of the amplification of emotions and empathy and telepathy and all that. I think that's rad. But its design as a Mega Gardevoir is so cool. Like, I think of it at the red part as its heart or its horn, like, splits, and that was really cool, I think, because I kind of saw it as the power that it gains from Mega Evolving is so much that its core is splitting, and it's like emitting all that power. I think that was awesome. The next Pokemon, Hatterene, I think is pretty heavily compared to Gardevoir, but I actually prefer Hatterene that was introduced in Sword and Shield. Hatterene has this witch vibe slash alien vibe slash princess vibe. Again, who doesn't love those things? I love the witch hat. I think it's so cool, and I like the fact that it transitions from blue to pink. I mean, blue to pink to white is one of my favorite color schemes in general, and I love that it was based on witches, and it's an all-female evolution line or species. It's so cool, and I like the moves that it learns a lot. Its signature move isn't really useful that much. I think it's Magic Powder, where if you use it on a Pokemon that isn't a psychic type, it turns it into a psychic type, and then you can do whatever you want with that. In my run-through of Sword and Shield, I had my Hatterene that knew a Magic Powder and then Brutal Swing, which is a physical Dark-type move, rather. And my strategy, if I needed it, like in an emergency, I would use Magic Powder and then use the Dark-type move, because Dark-type is really strong against Psychic-type. And even though that wasn't like super effective in terms of like winning battles, I just like that it could do that, and I like that it's just witch based. And then it Gigantamaxes into Gigantamax Hatterene, and its head kind of just like expands, but it looks like a cage, or rather a tower, where that's kind of like the princess vibe kind of comes in. And I think it was also Luxton Noggin's video on Hatterene that explained like the value of Hatterene as a female fairy tale character, where females are usually depicted as the witch or the princess, and we see this a lot. And it's, females can be depicted as very demure or virginal, or I don't want to say weak, but definitely like downplayed and not very boisterous. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum is the witch, the villain, the independent woman that is all powerful and is feared because of that. Again, love that concept, and I highly recommend his videos again. And then it obtains tentacles, which I'm not too big of a fan of, but I was willing to like accept it because I like this Pokemon so much. It's awesome. Its special attack is also really high too. So in battle, it's definitely one of those that I recommend having. And then we go to Rock type. There's only 3 Pokemon in this section. And no, technically there's 2 Pokemon, because one of them is a Mega Evolution. And they're both introduced in Gen 6 in X and Y. The first one is Aurorus. It's a fossil Pokemon, and I would say it's definitely my favorite fossil Pokemon. It's this really cool dinosaur with the color-changing frills. And I typically don't use rock types or ice types, which is its secondary type, but it was definitely a good Pokemon to have in X and Y, because like the dragon type and the Dragon type Elite Four, and then the champion Diantha was it was really effective against them when I was using ice types, I think. But I also just like the design. It looks really cool. It's huge. When I was looking at the heights and everything, I think it's definitely up there in like the top 10 of tallest Pokemon. I may be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But it's just really cool. I like it. And then the second one is a legendary. No, it's legendary, I would say, but also specifically mythical Pokemon. And I know there's a separation on it, but I wasn't too clear on it. It's a mythical Pokemon, and the fact that I think mythical Pokemon are those that there's only one of in the world, or at least at a time. And it's Diancie, and Diancie is a mutated Carbink. I believe that's true. But it's kind of like the princess of the Carbink, and it's a pink diamond Pokemon. How am I not going to like this Pokemon? It's really cool. It has a crown, it has hair, it has a little white dress. It's awesome. And then it mega evolves into this even like more royal looking queen. It has like the silk flowing down. Its dress turns into the pink diamond, and its forehead diamond turns into a heart shape. It's all there. It's so cool. And mythical Pokemon in general, like Mew and Jirachi and all those, are usually very like cute and nice looking as a design, but I think this was just a really cool way to interpret that. Especially that it's mentioned as like a mutated Carbink, which is just a normal common Pokemon, and then this mythical Pokemon came from that. And it's not an evolution per se, it's just like a different form. And I think that's awesome. The next one is the Ice type, and we're going to start with the Alolan form of the Fire type Ninetales, which is Alolan Ninetales, an Ice and Fairy type. Again, Fairy type, can't go wrong. But whereas I think the Fire type Ninetales looks like badass and like it can kill you, the Alolan Ninetales looks a little bit more gentle and like kind of like one of those spirits that you find in a snowy forest that helps you get out. It's very much of that, and I think that's so cool. I love that the tail is more like full and kind of just like out there instead of in the Cantonian Ninetales you see like it's the 9 segments of tails, whereas this one's just kind of like a mess of it, and I think that's really cool. And then we have Frostlass, which is the female evolution of Snorunt, which was introduced in Gen 4. Frostlass was introduced in Gen 4. Snorunt was introduced in Gen 3, I believe. And I like this one because, again, it's one of those gender specific evolution concepts, and I think that's really cool. It's also based on, I believe it's a yokai in Japanese lore. It's an ice woman, and I think that was so cool. And it's ghosty, it kind of has a kimono on, and I adore kimono styles, and the fact that it's like a deadly woman is also very much my kind of thing, and it's so cool. I think I used it towards the end of my first Pearl run through, and I remember just really enjoying it. And then the final one in the Ice types premiered in Sword and Shield, and it's Frostmoth, and it evolves from Snom, who is just a little baby boy. He's a round caterpillar covered in snow, and then it evolves into this gorgeous like coat-wearing dame of ice and snow with wings. It's gorgeous. I remember it being pretty good in battle, not one of the best, but it's awesome, and it's a unique typing with bug and ice type being its types, and I love it. It's cool. I love winged Pokemon, and that's all I have to say about that. And then we have the bug type, which is a bunch of winged Pokemon or winged Pokemon, and we're going to start off with the first bug type, Butterfree, which is another fan favorite among a lot of other people. I, along with other people who are fans since Gen 1, in the anime, you might remember the episode Bye Bye Butterfree, where Ash has to release his Butterfree because his male Butterfree found a girlfriend who was pink, because of course she was pink. That episode like stuck with me as a kid. It was so sad, but also Butterfree as just a butterfly Pokemon is really cute. I think it's classic Kanto Gen 1 design, where like Vileplume, it's simple, but it's not boring. It's really cool, and it was one of those Pokemon that I'm glad that we were like shown in Gen 1 instead of like Gen 3 or something. It's so cool, and I've always loved caterpillars and the metamorphosis of caterpillars. And then in Sword and Shield, it gets the Gigantamax version, which is, again, just gorgeous. Like, it has large green reflective wings, and I think that's just awesome. And, like, I'm looking, like, closer at the picture. It also, like, its body is just so round, and then it has, like, these gigantic wings behind it. It just, design-wise, it's awesome. Then we'll go to Vespiquen, which in my previous video, you know I love honeybees, one of my favorite animals of all time. And the fact that it's based off of queen bees, which I've studied in college, I love. I think that's awesome. And it's another one of those gender-specific evolutions where the female only evolves and the males don't. Which, in this specific Pokemon, I love that they did that because in actual honeybees, the females have 2 sets of chromosomes, which a complete set of chromosomes, and then the males only have 1 or half a set of chromosomes. And I think that's just really cool. And I love that she has a gown and she has a ruby on her head, and the hair is kind of like that Elizabethan historical queen royal vibe, and it's awesome. And then Vivian, which was introduced in Gen 6, another butterfly Pokemon that's just really cute. I like that it had the multiple patterns that's based on the physical geography of your game. I like that was kind of an external, real-world aspect that influenced your gameplay. And my favorite was its original released design, which was its meadow form, which is pink, white, and blue. Again, one of my 3 color schemes. And I don't really like its pre-evolutions, Scatterbug and Spoopa. They're not great looking, but I like them because they evolve into this Pokemon. And then the last bug-type Pokemon that are my favorite is one that I recently came to appreciate in my latest Ultra Moon playthrough, is Ribombee. And I never really, like, I caught Cutiefly just to complete the Pokedex, but I never used a Ribombee or Cutiefly in my team. And for this one I did, because I really started liking Mina, the Fairy-type Trial Captain, and her main Pokemon is Ribombee. And I started using it, and it was actually pretty powerful, and I really like its signature move, Pollen Puff. It's a pretty powerful bug-type move. I think it's 90 or 95 base power, and I think that's pretty comparable to Bug Buzz. And I like that it just had a signature ability, or a signature move, rather. And it has a scarf, like, come on, that's so cute. And its shiny version is pink with a red scarf, and I couldn't find a shiny one, obviously, because they're very hard to find in the game, but if I could find a shiny Cutiefly, I would be so happy, and I would use it in every game ever that I play. And then we have Dragon-type, and Dragon-type is also one of those types that I recently came to appreciate, where, like, it was cool, it was one of those, like, overappreciated types, but then I started to gain an affinity for it. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a newly introduced one that isn't even in the games yet. It's coming out in the Crown Tundra DLC in the fall, I think. And it's Drago? It's the Dragon-type Reggie. And at first I thought it was super silly and not great. And then I started to look at it, started to read into it, and I think it's really cool. Of course, we'll learn more as it gets closer to the release date of the Crown Tundra DLC, but for now, I have learned to appreciate its design and concept details, like how it uses, like, crystallized, I think they describe it as crystallized dragon energy. That's awesome. And then going to Dragonite, which is the next Dragon-type Pokemon that I like, it's the original dragon. I don't know many people who don't enjoy Dragonite. It's one of those classic European dragons that's also kind of chubby, which is also relatable. And it's cute, it's powerful. That's kind of the general aspect of that Pokemon that I like. And then we have Altaria, which I would say is my favorite Dragon-type Pokemon of all. And I could easily see it being in my top 10. And Altaria is not a dragon at all, really, but it's more of a bluebird, or based on the bluebird myth, or story, rather. It's a cloud. It's kind of swan-like, it's kind of bluebird/sparrow-like, and it sings. Another one of those Pokemon that are associated with music and singing and sound that I really like. And then it mega evolved and got fluffier and gained the fairy type. Surefire way to get me to like a Pokemon. It's Also, its cloud body has this like not shimmery effect, but it has like a pinkish sheen if you look at the shadows and highlights, and I think that's awesome. It also has a hat made out of clouds, and it's so cute, and its tail looks longer and more flowy, kind of like Articuno. And I've definitely used this in playthroughs, and it's so strong. I love it. And then the legendary Pokemon Latias. Latios and Latias, I think, are very heavily liked in the fandom, especially in battle, I would say. Latias I prefer just because it's the female slash more gentler looking Pokemon. And in, what movie was it? The movie with Latios and Latias where, spoiler alert, Latios dies. I love that movie. I think it's one of my favorite Pokemon movies. And Latias is just really cute in that movie, and I think that's where this, the liking of this Pokemon comes from. And I included its Mega Evolution just because it's associated with it, but I actually am not too big of a fan of the Mega Evolution. Its arms and overall body just makes it look so bulky and less sleek, which is, I think, the appeal of Latios and Latias, because they're like sort of based on jet planes or other celestial, or a celestial being and a jet plane. And it just looks really bulky, and I get it. I get like the Mega Evolution was introduced in Ruby and Sapphire, but it's not one of my favorites, but I just included it because it's one of its forms. And Ghost type only has 3. Mismagius, again, is going back to that witch vibe. It's kind of ghosty, but definitely based on witches, and I like the color scheme. It has the gems, and in the anime it's usually shown making illusions or like distorting people's dreams, I think that's really awesome. And then the newer ghost type Pokemon is Cursula. Now, I was never really a fan of Corsola. It's pre-evolution, like the normal water and rock type. But once it was introduced in Sword and Shield, the fact that it's conceptually based on coral bleaching and that it evolves into like this ectoplasmic spirit being released from the shell is so cool. Design-wise, I think it was such a good choice. And relevant, obviously, but I don't know, it's just awesome, and it's pretty strong in battle too, and I'm using it right now while I play through the Isle of Armor, and I don't regret it, it's awesome. And then we have Mimikyu, ghost fairy type, again, oh, come on, like that's gonna be one of my favorite ghost types. It's super spooky, its lore is disturbing, like if you've seen the anime or even just read up on it. Like if you look at the actual Mimikyu, which is the ghost under the cloth, it can like really mess you up mentally, and I think that's kind of cool. And I've used this one too. It's also pretty powerful. I think it's one of the ghost types that has the highest attack stat. Not too sure, but again, great in battle. And then the dark type, which was introduced in Generation 2 in Gold and Silver. And this one, I don't have too many. There's only 2 here. But yeah, I'm not too fond of dark types. I like dark type Pokemon and dark type moves. I just tend to not really use them. The first one is going to be Zoroark, which was introduced in Gen 5 in Black and White. This one was one of like the more special Pokemon that wasn't a legendary. I think it's had its own movie, and it had its own event for the video games, like kind of like Lucario-ish, where I thought it was legendary when it first came out, but it wasn't. Again, the concept is just really cool. Another Fox Pokemon that this is based off of, and it's illusionary. Its ability, like, if you haven't used Zoroark or don't know anything about Zoroark, its ability where when you put it into battle, it appears as if it's another Pokemon in your team. And I forgot the exact mechanics, like which one it's after, or which one it's mimicking. But like I've always forgotten about it. Like whenever I play against a trainer or a character that I know has a Zoroark, for some reason my mind just forgets that it has the illusion ability, and then it could be another Pokemon, and it's super frustrating. But I think that's again why I like it, because it's one of those Pokemon that a lot of people get frustrated with. And overall, it's just really cool. The design, it has a large ponytail slash spiky bun-ish kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about that one. And then the next one is Grimmsnarl, which was introduced in Sword and Shield. And I honestly, I think I like this Pokemon because it's Hatterene's counterpart, and Hatterene was the psychic in the psychic section. They're both gender exclusive. The pre-evolutions are found in the same area. They evolve at the same level for their two evolution stages. But I also just, in general, the comparison between Hatterene, who was like this witch princess fairy tale character, and then this goblin like dark character, really plays into each other well. And then it Gigantamaxes into this even like fiercer goblin looking thing, and where it's like hair on its body and head like turns even longer and like even more weaponized, and weaponized hair has also been heavily used in fairy tales and witch stories and magic stories, and I think that's awesome, especially again when it's compared to or used with Hatterene. Steel type also was introduced in Gen 2 for Gold and Silver. Not one of my favorite types. It's one of fairy type's weaknesses, but we're going to go ahead and talk about it. I do like a few of the Pokemon in Steel type, but I also find it annoying to battle against them because they have very few weaknesses and their overall defense and special defense stats tend to be pretty high, so it's hard to get them down unless you have a fire type or a ground type or fighting type. But we're going to start off with Mawile, one of the steel and fairy types. It was, when it was introduced in Gen 3, I thought it was just the coolest looking Pokemon, like it was the edgy Pokemon. And then it got a Mega Evolution where it's, I call it its mouth, but I don't know if it's like more of an appendage, but it gained an extra mouth, like, which makes it even more deadly. And then its clothes, its body, got a pink attribute to it. Again, that's gonna draw me in. Gotta love pink. And I never used a Mega Mawile when it was introduced in X and Y, but I think it was a really cool way of amping this Pokemon up, like adding another way of attacking. And I like that they didn't distort the look too much, but it definitely, you can tell like the step that they went from Mawile to Mega Mawile, if that makes sense. And then the other Steel and Fairy type Pokemon that I like is Klefki, another Pokemon that not a lot of people like, and I get why they don't like it in battle, but design-wise and conceptually, it's pretty cool. I like it. It's like a mischievous little set of keys, and my favorite part of this Pokemon would probably be that each key looks like it's from a different era. Like if we're going from a left to right, the gold one kind of looks like futuristic, and the next one looks very old and antiqued, and then the bronze one, it looks like a revitalized version of the gray or black one, and then the last one on the right, which is black and silver, looks like a very modern key, like today's key, and then it goes back into like that cycle of today, future, past, etc. And the final one in the Steel types is Metagross. I think Metagross is probably my favorite pseudo-legendary. It's super powerful. It's one of the few pseudo-legendaries that isn't a dragon type. And I like that the concept from like Beldum to Metang to Metagross is like, to get from Beldum to Metang, you need to like get two Beldum together, and then from Metang to Metagross, you need to get two Metagross together. And because of that whole function and how it's said that Metagross has 4 brains, that's awesome. I think that's so cool. And it's also a psychic type, which is my second favorite type again. And it looks badass. It's super strong. Hard to beat, I would say, unless you have the specific types that it's weak against. And then it mega evolves. This is kind of like a Latias situation where I prefer the original design to the mega evolution. It's not bad. It's not one of my favorite designs, but I still definitely would use it for sure. And the final type, we're finally here, is Fairy type. And not only is Fairy type my favorite type, it's also the newest type introduced. It was introduced in Gen 6 with X and Y, and there's not many, there's quite a few Pokemon in this section, but there's not like as many as there was in Psychic type, because Fairy type was kind of like sprawled out through the other types, and Fairy type is more commonly a secondary type when it's a Pokemon is dual typed. So that's kind of like that basis. So we're going to start off with Clefable. Clefable, going back to the very first type, normal type, along with Wigglytuff and Blissey is one of like the key pink round Pokemon that was introduced early on in the franchise. It's also evolved with a Moonstone, and this one's lore is actually connected to the moon. It's said to like come from the moon, and in the anime, I think the scene was like a bunch of Clefairies dancing around the Moonstone under a full moon, and then they evolved into Clefable. That always stuck with me too. I also just like that it's actually based on a fairy with its wings, and it's also a fairy type. And then, the Moonblast being introduced with fairy type was awesome. It's one of the strongest fairy type moves, I believe, that a lot of Pokemon can move. A lot of Pokemon can use, and it's great. And I love that it also connected to like the stars and like outer space, which is one of my other interests too. Because its first evolution in its evolutionary line is Cleffa, which is like actually a star. I think it's also known as like the star-shaped Pokemon, and then it evolves to like Clefairy, which is more like moon-based, and then Clefable, which is even more like the fairy moon or moon fairy kind of thing, and I love that. The next one is Slurpuff, and that was also introduced with the fairy type in Gen 6. Another Pokemon that not many people like, just because it's like kind of one of those food/object-based Pokemon that kind of get trashed on, like Garbodor or Vanilluxe. But I like this Pokemon. It just looks like a puppy with whipped cream, and it's so cute. And I used it in X and Y, and I was pretty happy with it. I think it had a good defense stat, if I remember correctly. It's cute, and it's a fairy type, and I like it. It was one of the first new fairy type Pokemon that were released, and it was also exclusive to Pokemon X. And it has a cherry on top. Like, come on, it's so cute. And then Sylveon was one of my at one point in my life it was my number one favorite Pokemon, because it was the very first fairy type Pokemon to be announced. And when it was first shown, like it was leaked from Korokoro magazine, I think, no one knew what it was because the fairy type wasn't released yet. So people were guessing like, oh, is it just like a normal type evolution? But it also could be flying because of like the ribbons, looks like it's flowing in the wind. Maybe it's, what was one of the other guesses? I think bug was something, because it kind of looked like antenna, but not really, and like the bow looked like a butterfly or something. But that was really cool. I thought it was going to be a flying type, which I was going to be super happy with, and then it was announced as a fairy type, and I was like, fairy type, first of all, is cool. Second of all, that makes so much sense that this is a fairy type. And I loved it. Also really good with special attacks, as most evolutions are, I would say. And I used it in my X and Y playthrough, and I think it was my leading Pokemon. I think I even put it ahead of my starter, which was Delphox at the time. And yeah, it's still one of my favorite Pokemon, but it's not like in my top 5, really. And then the next one is Zacian. I think I'm saying that right. And this was one of the mascots of Sword and Shield, being the mascot of Pokemon Shield. And it starts off as a fairy type, and then once it gets its sword, it is fairy steel. Now, its base form as just the fairy type is cool. I do like it, and I like that both Zacian and Zamazenta have that base form without the armor. But when it gets the armor, it's so cool. It's very like Valkyrie-esque. It's like guardian angel / knight, and I love that. I love the wings, or the wing motifs rather, because it doesn't actually fly, but I love that. And something that I noticed only recently when I was making these like graphics is that in the base form it has like the braids of fur, and then the braids are undone once it gets its armor. That little detail doesn't mean much, but I just like that it was introduced and included in that. I will say though, I do sometimes still kind of find it silly that it's just holding a sword in its mouth, but I still appreciate it, and I know that like, I can't imagine what else they would have done with the sword. Like with Zamazenta and the shield, that was more of an easy introduction into its actual body, because it could be like a mane or at least like a chest or something. The sword is kind of a little bit harder, but I'm still very happy with its design. It's awesome. We are finally to the last Pokemon, and I left this one I left this one at the end of the fairy type, but it's also just convenient that it's the very last Pokemon that I'm talking about because it's my number one favorite Pokemon of all time, and it's Togekiss. Togepi was always one of my favorites. I love the baby Pokemon. I love that it's like in an egg. And then Togetic came and it was like this little angel kind of fairy thing, and I always loved it. It was always one of my favorites. And then Togekiss came in Gen 4. And it's like kind of this like mama bird angel slash like blimp almost looking thing. It's so round and it's so cute, and its wings are so, they appear like really non-functional, but they're just because they're like swirls of fur or something, but they're so cute, and I love this Pokemon line. Togekiss will probably always be my favorite Pokemon. As you can see, I have the pre-evolutions, and I do have a Togekiss plush somewhere, but I think it's somewhere in the garage. But yeah, Togekiss, my number one favorite. I remember being so obsessed when it first came out, and I needed a Togepi in my Diamond and Pearl playthrough when I first got it, but Togepi wasn't available until after the Elite Four. Like, you had to use the Pokemon radar like on a certain day to find Togepi, and even then it was still pretty hard to find. But yeah, Togekiss, I will always see it as like my partner Pokemon because it's really gentle, and I think if I were in the universe, I'm a very like, how do I put this, like I could be very intense, I would think, in like battles or something, and even though Togekiss like kind of only gravitates towards positive energy, I think it could help me in like balancing that, where I can learn a lot from Togekiss and work to learn to be like more gentle and like kind of serene, kind of hinting at its ability, or one of its abilities, Serene Grace. So I think that is also a really cool connection. As a trainer, like I could also see myself like riding it, like using it as my fly Pokemon. And it's also like it would be a nurturing Pokemon because it's like the chicken and the egg line, because like I think that's pretty much what this is based off of, where Togepi is like the newly hatched Pokemon out of the egg where it still has its shell, and then Togetic is the chick, which I think is the IC part of Togetic's name, coming from chick, and then it evolves into like the fully grown adult bird that is nurturing and takes care of the babies, and I love that. And I love that it's so cute and round, and it's smiling, and its little stubby legs are so cute, and I am so happy with it. So yeah, thank you so much for sticking through this. I know this was a long video. I am looking at the clock, and it's 1 hour and 22 minutes. So I hope that you stay tuned, and I'm glad that I was able to talk about something like this, because I was kind of having a hard time figuring out things to talk about. But yeah, so Sam, specifically, I hope you enjoyed. I know, Sam, that you like Pokemon too, and I hope that it was interesting to see like my views on my favorite Pokemon, and I hope that you can talk about your favorite Pokemon too someday. And that is that for the video. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.